You ever go to sell your digital marketing agency services and this is all that happens? I'm sorry, but we really just can't afford that right now. Woo! I'm gonna have to talk to my cousin's brother's uncle's former roommate first before I can make a decision. Yeah, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and send me a proposal first. Yeah, you just need me to send you a proposal. Yeah, fuck you and your fucking proposal. That's what I say to that. Oh, yeah, you just need a proposal, no problem. Alright, so I'll be on the lookout for that proposal. What if instead you could get people to buy your $1,000 to $10,000 a month digital marketing services entirely over Loom? And I'll tell you, we've actually done it this way for the last 5 years. I know that you may be a little bit skeptical and thinking, it's so hard to sell my stuff over a phone call. Why would video be any easier? And I want to show you guys the entire process in this video, start to finish. Now, most people ask me about the closing part, like what is it you guys are saying in these videos that makes people convert and actually buy the stuff as we've been doing for 5 years. But I want to show you, it's really a two-part thing in the same way that, like, if you propose to somebody and ask them to marry you, well, it's not just about the proposal, it's about everything that comes before the proposal that impacts it, right? So in this video, I'm going to show you both of those pieces, including how to close in the videos, but also the part that nobody asked me about, which is equally important, is what actually happens before that video. So let's get into it right now. What's up, guys? My name's Frankie Finn. For those of you guys who don't know me already, I wrote this best-selling book on Amazon, Beyond the Agency Box, currently writing a second book that'll be out shortly. I've also built 3 of my own digital marketing agencies to 100-plus clients, and also helped thousands of people over the last, decade or so to run this whole agency stuff. And one of the most interesting things is for the last 5 years, we have sold 100% of our stuff without talking to people. We use video to sift and sort. And this has saved us a massive amount of stuff because we don't have salespeople. Nobody calls in sick. They don't have ups and downs. I don't have to coach anyone. I don't have to train anyone. And fun little story about that. 2 weeks ago, I was at a conference. I was riding on a bus. We were going to a little boat ride on the ocean in Cancun. And one of the guys was kind of skeptical, asked me, like, how does this video stuff work? Can you actually close services like that? I don't know if that would work in my space. So why don't we pull up the stats right now? And I had no idea what to find because it's not like, it's not a linear business model where it's 100% the same all the time. But I looked and we had closed $1,500 in the 45 minutes him and I were like talking, right? Like sales were coming in. And that's because Digital Me is a 24/7 sales beast. And this has relieved us from sales teams and hiring and all those things where you nail it once in one little 5-minute pitch and can be done again and again. So I want to show you guys the two pieces. And the piece I'm going to show you guys first is the one that everybody should ask but doesn't, is what happens before the video that makes people want to buy. So I want you to imagine for a second that your market, so this doesn't really matter whether you work with plumbers, dentists, doctors, lawyers, e-commerce, SaaS, you got a go high level thing, or if you're still a generalist and you're working with clients all over the spectrum. I'm going to just draw a couple of stick figures here. Maybe we'll make 5 of them. But I want you to imagine that this represents 100 people in your market. So say, for example, you work with dentists. We got 100 dentists standing in front of us here. Well, when most people go to think about prospecting a digital marketing services, they think, I need to go get ad dentists. But there's actually an 80-20 of this. And I learned this from a guy named Jim Straw, who's an almost billionaire. In the 1950s, by today's standards, he'd be worth 30, 40 billion. And he said, people get business all wrong because they start with, how do I sell my thing, instead of who's buying it. And so this was a fundamental shift because I realized that 80% of the people in your market are not buyers. And so when it comes to digital marketing services, this is a dollar sign here, even though they may be the largest number of people, from a monetary perspective, they actually spend less on marketing services than the top 20% by orders of magnitude, right? And then there's also an 80-20 in here where if you can get 100 dentists in a room, or whatever it is that would niche you're in, what we would find is that there's actually one dentist or maybe 2 dentists that spend more than the rest of the entire room combined. So our goal is not about how do we sell our thing. It's actually identifying who's buying it, who's spending all the money. And what's interesting is when you attract mostly non-buyers, as I've done like a lot over the years, you actually have 2 sales to make. And the 2 sales are one, that they should do this at all. And then the second is with me. And what you'll find is most of the non-buyers in a space, they actually fight you on that. They should do it at all. Like, they fundamentally don't believe in business and marketing and advertising, or maybe they just don't really want to grow. And so they fight you on the should I do this at all part, not on the with me. So for example, I can remember we had a client. He said, I'm getting beat by all the other attorneys in my space. It's time I really start advertising, take this stuff seriously. And then I remember after like $200 on Facebook ads, the account froze. And he had set up something on his end, unbeknownst to me. And I called him up. I'm like, I'm not sure what's up. Something's up with our account. He said, oh, I set a $200 limit. And he's like, well, if you didn't make me $1 million by $200, I don't see what's going to change if we spend more money. Now, as you guys know, advertising is a process. There's a refinement. But what he was fundamentally fighting me on is, I should advertise at all, not my own ability. And so I want you guys to understand that is like almost all the headaches I see with people is they're trying to convince people who don't want to grow, who don't believe in spending money to do it. As we're here, what you'll find, these people already have a budget. They're already using it. And they often know their numbers. They'll say like, I'm willing to spend $1,000 per signed case. We got a $250,000 a month budget. We'd be willing to give you 10 grand to start with. If you can get case values under our target metric of $1,000 per signed case, we're happy to give you more budget to make this work. And what I learned is, by the way, and this came from years and years of speaking at conferences, is that these people are already spending money. Right? So you don't have to convince them to do that. So the question I had is on what? And what I realized in doing that is there's actually 7 ways that these people already spend all the money. Okay? And so what would happen for me, by the way, is one of those ways, I'll put in number 6 first, which is, we'll put in the conference here. I would go to a conference, I would speak, and it wasn't unusual when you speak at a conference that, there'd be 1,000 lawyers in the audience, and you walk off stage and you sign 5, 10, 15 clients, and you pick up 20, 30 grand a month recurring. Doesn't suck. Now, I wish I could tell you it's because I'm such an amazing and dynamic and handsome dad bod, and my speech was so charming, but here's the reality. So did everybody else, right? Everybody else signed 5, 10, 15, 20 clients too. That's why they're speaking. They weren't just doing it for the good of their health. And so I started to realize that it was actually the audience, right? Everybody in the conference, they had spent $1,000 or more to be there. They had bought plane tickets. They had booked hotels. They were in there for thousands of dollars. They were serious about investing and growing their business. I knew it because they were actively spending money to do it. So let me tell you the first thing that I noticed people were spending money on. And I'm just going to call it EXP, which stands for expertise. So the top people in your space, they're already in masterminds. They are buying courses. They are hiring consultants and things of that nature. Now, so the second thing I noticed that they bought was information, right? Somebody is putting out the top podcast. Somebody's got a magazine. Somebody's got an industry newsletter. Somebody's got a YouTube channel and things of that nature. And the top people were already paying attention to those things. Now, the next thing I noticed is that they were also in communities. Right? They actually shared information with each other about what was working. Often these communities were on LinkedIn or on Facebook. Sometimes they were offline and stuff in the real world. As well, I noticed that they were in industry associations. I'm a foul-mouthed boy, so I had to write the word ass. But industry associations, that doesn't mean every single person in the industry association is a major player, but the industry associations share the best information. They're usually not free. It's an indicator of buyer behavior. Now, the next thing I noticed they were buying, tools and software. So we got ass tools, soft ass tools. There you go. I had a high school teacher who used to talk about shitfum, which is for short form. But they're buying tools and software, and depending on your industry, those tools could be like the Nailgun 9000, or it could be like digital marketing stuff where we buy tools like Go High Level or a CRM and things like that. Somebody's making the dental CRM. Somebody makes the CRM in your space. Who is that person? And then the last thing I noticed is the conferences. I would also call this events because there's also workshops and live events and things like that. And then the last thing is they bought other marketing services, right? They bought SEO. They bought pay-per-click. The top people, by the way, spend on everything. They want TikTok before everyone else. They want Instagram. They want Facebook. They're running radio, TV, billboards, you name it. They're buying it, right? So what I learned is by doing this is they actually all have a common struggle in common, and it is this one word, which is content. They all put out content, but there's all kinds of challenges behind the scenes. Now, I worked for about 2 or 3 years in one of the industry associations called the Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association in Legal. And I'll tell you, behind the scenes, even though we put out, all of these people, by the way, have something in common, which is they put out massive amounts of content, but that's the very thing they struggle with. So behind the scenes, it was like, hey, we got to print our newsletter in 3 hours, and one of our writers bailed. So like, we need to say something in that newsletter. Or it would be, hey, we're trying to sell tickets for our event, But people are saying, hey, I already heard all these speakers last year. If there's nobody new, I'm not going to go. We need to find 4 or 5 new speakers that have something new to say to these people. Or people would say things like, hey, we don't have a podcast guest for the start of next month. Or we're doing a webinar next Thursday. We did a webinar every week. And it was like, we don't have somebody for our webinar. So I suggest to you that the opportunity to get in front of these people, and I'll tell you, there's really 2 ways to get in front of these people. Way number 1 is when you want to get in front of all that buyer flow, all the 20% of your market that spend all the money, is you're either going to co-create content with these people and get in front of their audiences. All these people, by the way, have audiences that they own. Or 2, you're going to use paid ads and you're going to use these things as targeting. Right? So both options work, by the way, and we use a combination of both. So I sometimes run YouTube ads and I'll target channels of people that make these things. Or I'll go and co-create content with the industry association, right? Why message 10,000 dentists one at a time when you can go on the top dental podcast and get in front of 10,000 dentists all at once? And what will happen when you do this, when you co-create content with the buyers? So what you're going to find when you do that is, not that every single piece of content you're going to put out works, but because you're in front of buyers, it's not uncommon for 5, 10, 15, 20 people, when you create something, to reach out. If you go on the top dental podcast with 10,000 listeners, don't be surprised if 5 or 10 people reach out and say, how do we work together? Okay? So this will ultimately drive them to your website. Now, the last piece I want to show you, and actually, give me a second, we'll clean this board up, and I'll show you guys the next piece of it. Okay, so what will happen is you're going to have 5, 10, 15, 20 people reach out to you for each time you do this and get in front of a buyer's audience. And again, sometimes you'll get 0, but sometimes you're going to get 20, right? But it'll all average out, that, with consistency if you get in front of buyers. And by the way, just a little aside, people ask me a lot of time, I need to make money fast. What's the best way to do that? And they're almost always looking for some kind of magic phrase that'll get people to just throw their credit card at them. And the truth is that doesn't exist. But the closest and fastest thing I've found is stand in front of a bunch of buyers in your space, offer them something, and don't be surprised when they come to you. So what will happen is when people reach out to you, what they're usually going to do is they're going to say, can we have a call? And it's very, very important that you don't say, no, go fuck off, no call for you, is you actually say, yes, but first I would like to send you a video. So what do we actually put in these videos, okay? Well, there's actually 5 pieces to this, and this just comes from, I've done, I don't know, thousands and thousands of calls, and what you find is you go through the same milestones. Now, the first thing people wonder in a call is they wonder, what is this thing, right? They may ask it to you all kinds of ways. They may say things like, tell me about you guys and what you do, or what is this thing about? I'm curious about you guys and your services. Can you tell me a little bit more about you guys? But what they're essentially trying to figure out is, what is it you guys do, specifically as it relates to how it may or may not help them. Now, if in that time frame they see either a problem you can help them solve or an outcome you can create that they actually want, they're going to wonder, will it work for me? It's a more personalized version. That sounds interesting. I wonder if that would work in my place. I see you guys were able to do that for a similar lawyer over in Atlanta, but I'm in Frog Falls, Arkansas. Would it work the same? Then the next thing they wonder is, and this is the piece people miss the most often, how does it work? How does it work, right? That we need to have that logical part of our brain answer. And if that makes sense to them, and by the way, the most amount of objections you're going to get to in here, or in the how, in the form of, well, that sounds something really similar to something I tried before that didn't work, right? So this is the part you actually have to do the most diffusing of objection. Then they wonder how much, right? They want to know the money of it. And you'd be amazed, by the way, how many calls are simply based on people jumping on the phone just because they want to know how much it is. And as an interesting side effect, sometimes people ask me, like, what are your closing rates with these calls? And they think, well, I close 8 out of 10 calls, like the videos are going to close lower. And the truth is, they're about 20%. People go, aha! So if I switch to video, we're going to close 4 times less calls. But the truth is, if one person is willing to jump on a call to go through a 60-minute call and get pitched by you, I'll promise you at least 10 or 20 people would watch a video about the same thing. So that means if there's 10 people that would watch a video, I might only close 2 of them, but you may get 1 person on a call and close only 1 of them. So our actual overall closing rates are higher since we switched to video, even though the 1-to-1 closing part is actually lower. Then the 5th piece is they want to know is, like, what's next? I'm going to show you guys how to answer these in video format. But first I want to talk about this middle piece, which is actually the longest one, which is how. How, in essence, the way we answer the how question is in 3 to 5 steps. We detail what I would call your plan or your process. So let me give you an example. Christian from our Wolfpack Mastermind, he was helping restaurants to get birthday parties. Now, restaurants like birthday parties because people come with 12, 20, 30, 40 of their friends. I'm not cool enough to have 40 friends. No, I'm just messing with you guys. They're just spread out. They go to another school. No, but in all seriousness, so they like those birthday parties because a lot of people come. Well, here's how Kristen does it 3 to 5 steps. We put up something at your restaurant that captures people's contact info. Then we send them an email that says, hey, we have a birthday special. Statistically, 1 out of 12 people who fill that out have their birthday this month. We offer them something free, like an appetizer or dessert, to come in, and then they schedule and book a time so that we know there's a party of 30 people coming, and that's how we're able to get restaurants booked, right? You see in a 3 to 5 step process. Now, I mentioned co-creating content with those people. What kind of content do we create? And it's exactly this. If you can really just internalize this, is that ideas equal free, and implementation is the money. So that means, for example, let's say you've got a Go High Level SaaS and you're showing business owners how to get Google reviews. Teach them how to get Google reviews for free without needing you. Or say, for example, you do SEO for plumbers. Show plumbers how they can rank #1 in Google without you and give away all of the ideas and show them exactly how to do it for free. And what you'll find is if you do that, 10 out of them will, out of 10 of them, 8 of them will say, that sounds cool, but I don't really want to do that. Can you just do that for me, right? Most plumbers or dentists or doctors or lawyers or e-commerce owners, they don't want to be marketers. They don't want to do this stuff, but they need to know enough that you know what you're talking about and that you're believable. So this is very important that we're actually in the content, we're pre-selling this plan. We're pre-selling this process as the way to get what they want. This is very, very important that this and this are actually the same thing. So if they come to me, for example, you guys are witnessing this right now. I am pre-selling you guys on the idea that getting in front of the buyers and closing through videos is way cooler. And I'll explain to you why that is in a second than the way what most people teach, which is a lot of what I would call digital door knocking or Facebook ads. Now the what piece, what we found is this is the hardest one to really answer with a phrase, and so the best thing we found out to do is answer this with a picture. For 8 out of 10 of you guys listening, what you should show your clients as a picture is an example of a lead as it comes to them. Now, a lot of times you want to show a picture as it shows up to you. What I mean, like if you help get people to get #1 rankings, you want to show a picture of a #1 ranking. That's how you receive it. But you want to show them as the result shows up in their reality. If they're going to get a form and somebody's going to fill it out and say, I'm interested in working together, just take a little screenshot of that and show them this is what we do for people. So I remember actually Mark in our mastermind, he was helping, he still is, but he's helping kitchen remodelers with Facebook ads. And he was like, I don't really know what I would show them. That's all that interesting. And so we pulled up a lead, and it was a Facebook form, and the person sent pictures and said, I'm interested in getting a quote on my kitchen. We took a picture, and we pixelated the person's sensitive information, the phone number and email. So this is what you're going to get 2 to 3 times a day. Somebody's going to reach out to you like this. You got to go over, drive over, give them a quote. And if you do that consistently, you'll land some of those kitchen jobs. The will it work for me, they wonder, is typically what we found is you really just want to call out your best ideal clients. So what your best ideal clients are, like for example, I'm thinking about Chris that I've helped to do this process. He helps mobile or car detailers to like do websites and SEO and pay-per-click and those kind of things. And one of the things we found out is after the clients who gave him the most amount of headaches and the most amount of difficulties, they were what were called mobile detailers. Now, a mobile detailer is somebody who can't yet afford a shop, and so they're driving to their client's house to detail their car. So, they're putting flames on the side of it, or they're tinting the windows, or they're putting rims on it, or whatever. That's the extent of my mobile detailing knowledge. And he found that the clients who did this better, they had real physical shops because they had a budget and they could afford to do this. So we just simply called them out. Those work for me. Works well if you got a real physical shop. So what I would suggest to here is you want 1 or 2 conditions that are your ideal client. It's very important that these conditions are binary. What I mean is that they are yes or no. So for us, it's like you got to have at least 1,000 visitors a month that we can retarget. That's a binary thing. But like, are you coachable? Do you want to grow? Those are kind of wishy-washy things that are not really yes or no. So it's got to be mathematical and quantifiable. Do you have a real physical shop? Yes or no, right? Now, the money thing is the thing that most people hide behind, and I'll tell you the way we handle that is with a formula that stands for IVQ. And the I stands for investment, the V stands for value, and the Q is qualifier, and the Q is the same thing here as those 1 to 2 conditions we just restated. So I'll tell you, like, most people don't get this, but it's really not about the money. The money is the least important thing. The most important thing is what you get for the money. And as an example of this, if I said to you, I got a car for sale, it's $5,000. Is that a deal or is that a ripoff? Like, you don't know until you know what kind of car you're going to get for the money. So it's not the money, it's the kind of car you're going to get for it. So for example, if I say I got a 1972 used Hyundai, it doesn't run and the doors are rusted and the engine's shot to shit, well, $5,000's a ripoff now, right? Like, that's a $50 junkyard car. But if I say to you, hey, I just found out my wife cheated on me. I just bought her a brand new 911 Turbo for her birthday, but screw that bitch. I'm selling that car. First person to get down here with the deed to the car is getting the deed to this car for $5,000. I want to see the look on her face when I sell her $250,000 car for $5,000. Well, you better sprint over. So it's not about the investment it's more about, like, what are you going to get in return? The value is, okay? So we want to spell out the investment is whatever your price is, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever your number. And for that, you will get, and that is the most important part of that, is you're going to get 50 to 100 phone calls a month after 6 months once you're ranking. Or you're going to get $50 leads coming in, or you're going to get 2 to 3 people a day reaching out. Whatever that outcome looks like for you, you want to spell that out. So giving you an example of this, I might say the investment is $2,500 a month. For that, you're going to get 50 to 100 motorcycle case leads every month, and it works really, really well if you can answer your phone within 3 minutes whenever somebody calls. Right? So there it is. It's done in a nutshell. So, and then the last piece is what's next. And you really just want to spell this out, right? Like, if you want them to click the button and buy it, tell them to click the button and buy it. If you want them to schedule a call, tell them to schedule a call. If you want them to email you and say, I'm in, we get people to email us and say, I'm in. And it creates this fundamental thing when you start selling through video. I call it inbox hunting, but people, like, literally show up in my inbox and say, okay, I'm ready to buy it. And I don't even know who they are because they've watched all my video stuff and we've never previously spoken. They've only consumed, like, digital stuff. So that's the magic of this. Now, what I wanted to show you guys, last piece, is there's really what I would call 3 different ways that everybody says you have to grow in this process. And one of those is what I would call digital door knocking. There's a hand right there, a terrible hand. Second is the Facebook billboard. This process is what I would call the grocery store. Okay, so digital door knocking, this is the thing that's easiest for people to understand, and this is what most beginners are taught, but it's really the most inefficient business model. And when I was 12, 13 years old, I got a job selling chocolate bars for clients. Run around knocking on doors, and you get this big ass heavy cooler, and you say, would you like to buy some chocolate bars? And you get basically 3 answers. Either people aren't home, that's the most common answer, is they just do, or they don't answer the door. Like, the no response is the most common response. They tell you no. Sometimes they're polite about it. They know we don't need chocolate, we're diabetic. Or sometimes they're really mean about it. They go, fuck off, you just woke my fucking kid. But I'll tell you, actually, now that I'm a parent, I totally understand that better. Or the third option is they say, yeah, we'll take some. And that's the third option. But I'll tell you, this is the most inefficient way to do it. So we used to work 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day knocking on doors, massive amounts per day. Now, the second way everybody teaches to do it is what I would call the Facebook billboard, which is essentially tell people on Facebook what you do with no pre-selling, no process, no whatever. One of my mentors says, never pitch your offer until they're pre-sold on the plan. And so they're not sold on this 3 to 5 step process. And so you're going to get a lot of people on a call who barely know who you are. There's my Amazon guy dropping packages. And then last piece of what I want to show you guys with this is what I call the grocery store process. So when we were selling chocolate bars, once a month, our manager would go to the local grocery store chain in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, the hometown, represent the Dirty Dub, close enough to Detroit to hear the gunshots. And he would say, without being hit, by the way, obviously I got no bullet wounds in me, but he would say to the grocery store manager, is it okay if we sell your stuff outside? What we would find is when he would do that, for the most part, like, people would buy a lot of fucking chocolate bars from us. In fact, every single kid, we'd have 2 on each major entrance, exit, whatever you want to call them, way in and way out. And every single kid would be sold out of chocolate in 10 or 15 minutes. And why? Because we stood in front of the buyer's flow, and it was just so many times more efficient. So what I just showed you guys here is what I would call a grocery store process. instead of doing all the digital door knocking in 8 hours a day, trying to schedule meetings and trying to get a bazillion calls, or running Facebook ads, which I think is a great process for scaling, but not necessarily beginning brand new, because nobody tells you you're probably going to lose 10 grand before you start, before you get working. Or you can just go to the grocery stores, co-create stuff with them. And the real magic of this is the energy efficiency, because this takes 5, 7, 8, 9 hours a day of door knocking and prospecting and doing lots of calls to maybe get 5 or 10 clients. This tends to get a lot of calls, but they're mostly unqualified calls with people who don't know who you are and they're very skeptical, and you have to be really, really good at selling to close that gap. This mostly gets you people who are 7, 8, 9 out of 10. And we can actually do more damage with one message a week than these people can with 10,000, right? Because these people are 10,000 times knocking on doors. But if we actually just message one dental podcast, the top podcast in the industry, we co-create a piece of content that explains our 3 to 5 steps. Well, it takes us only about 30, 60 seconds to pitch that podcast. It might take us 45 minutes to create that podcast, and then 5 or 10 people reach out to us, and we only make a 5-minute video, and that 5-minute video can be reused again and again and again and again and again and again. So all in all, investment-wise, to sign 5, 10, 15 clients, we're only in it an hour or two, and so it's really, really more rifle and marksman instead of this, which is a lot of spray and pray. And again, we're pre-selling people on the process. If you could measure the warmth of people who come in the door for this, with digital door knocking, they're basically like a 1 to 3 out of 10, right? They have no idea who you are or what you do. With Facebook billboards, they're usually like a 3 to 5. It's a little bit higher because they found you in the process, and okay, I saw your ad. But the grocery store process, as I describe it, people are 7 to 10. In fact, the easiest sale I ever made in my life, I think about this, selling one of our digital marketing agency services. I had a lady schedule a call. She said, a week ago we saw you speak at the National Trial Lawyers. To be honest with you, we don't even know what you sell, but we came here to buy it, so tell me how we work together and how much it's going to cost. And we closed that sale in about 2 minutes. Well, that lady was already a 10 out of 10 before we got started. Pretty much anybody could close that. And so what you're going to find when you do this is not only do you get in front of buyers, but you're going to get in front of them in a much warmer state. And then we use video to take it across the finish line. So I hope this process makes a lot of sense. For those of you guys who are interested in getting help on the implementation side, we have a mastermind. We have all of this mapped out. In fact, we have AI tools to identify those 7 types of people that we mentioned. You can do that in under 10 minutes. We've got scripts and frameworks for pitching those people. And we've got tools to auto-generate the content for you, so you can be in the top magazine in your industry in 10 minutes from now if you want to. If that sounds interesting, you may want to check out beyondagencyprofits.com, and we have a link for the Wolfpack, which is the name of our mastermind. But other than that, I hope you guys found this enlightening and insightful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments just how some of the insights and stuff you picked up, or if you have a question of how this would apply to your specific industry. And that's all I got for you guys in this video. Thank you so much, and make sure to subscribe, and may the force be with you.
Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll also like my book on Amazon called Beyond the Agency Box, which you can also find by my name, Frankie Finn, and it's got a lot of awesome reviews, and it really just goes deeper on a lot of things we're talking about, everything you need to grow and start a lifestyle agency, from the stages you'll go through to getting clients, to how to create winning offers, to high value deliverables, to wowing clients, to building teams, to building systems, and building a boring factory that's like a 7-figure money machine for you. So if you're interested, I put links for you in the video description, as well as it'll be in the pinned top comment below, and make sure to check those out.